You are listening to Resilient Life, the podcast where we explore the power of resiliency. I'm Naketa Ross. It is my hope that listening to this podcast will give you the tools to connect with and increase your resiliency. So join me on this adventure of self-discovery and self-love. Welcome back to Resilient Life, the podcast where we explore the power of resiliency. Today, we have Lori joining us. Lori, will you please introduce yourself? Give us your name, your chosen profession or passion, and anything you want to share with us.
Hi, thank you for having me on your podcast today. My name is Lori Goodspeed. I am an administrative assistant at the House of Representatives, and I'm just excited to be here today.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yes.
Lori, how do you define resilience?
I would define it as boldness. Define, they say that when life gives you lemons, make lemonade.
Yes.
And I would say that's what resilience is. It's refusing to give up. It's the true definition of a ride or die. Because no matter what happens, we not quitting. We not stopping. We're not laying down the towel. We're not going to stay down. We're getting back up even if we fall 1,000 times. That's resilience to me.
That's a beautiful definition. Very inspiring, very optimistic. I love that. So with that definition in mind, do you consider yourself to be resilient?
Yes, ma'am. I am resilient. I would say that I'm resilient because I didn't allow what happened in my childhood to dictate who I am today as a woman. There's a long backdrop, to that, and growing up in foster care and being separated from everything I've ever known and having to relearn. My grandmother, she adopted us. I didn't want to get adopted out of the group because I was already almost 17. So I didn't see a need for her to adopt me. Plus, she was my grandmother. But just having to learn her ways, and coming from no structure to having structure, that was really hard. And so I went against the grain for a little while, and then when I had my first son, I was a single mom. Their dad was there, but we was not married. And I had to, what they say, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. I had to pull myself up by the bootstraps and say, okay, this is what this is, and this is what I want, and I don't want what I see right at this moment. And so I think I've done well. My sons, I have a 20-year-old and a 22-year-old in August, and I'm so proud of them. So they really they give me my grade card, and I'm like, thank you, Jesus.
I love that. I think
So,
that's beautiful.
yes.
Thank you for sharing a little bit of your experience about how you are resilient. I really appreciate that. Do you have, Lori, any advice for individuals who want to increase their resiliency?
Yeah, I would say that my advice would be always be kind to yourself. Always give yourself space to grow. Because my mom used to say, joy cometh in the morning. And so sometimes we get really down on ourselves for decisions we make, and, or we don't see a way out and we think this is it. And sometimes we want to just quit and give up. But if we just take a moment and breathe and just be kind to yourself and embrace the situation, that you're facing, as an opportunity to learn and to grow. Because when we know better, we do better.
I think that's very thought-provoking, because I love how you said just be kind to yourself. But there are so many of us who weren't raised with kind words and things being said or done to us. And so it's kind of sometimes difficult for us to be kind to ourselves because we haven't learned that. And so that's actually a part of the purpose of the podcast, is to encourage people and to give them the skills and the tools to be kinder to themselves. So I absolutely love that you said that. That was perfect.
Yeah.
How do you celebrate yourself, Lori?
I put myself on a reward system. So Yeah, I do because I used to, so when you're on an airplane and they say, the oxygen is for you, you have little ones, don't give it to them first, give it to yourself. Because if you pass out, everyone's gone. There's no help for
Yes.
no one, right? And
Yes.
so we have to take care of ourselves first. And I had to learn that. I had to learn to put me first, and it's okay to put me first. But then it comes down to responsibilities,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're the head of the household. You have bills, we want to go out and buy all the finer things in life. We want that Coach purse, we want the Mac computer, we want, these things. But I reward myself. So I say, okay, my priorities, what are they? I'm going to do XYZ. And when I get that done, then I'm going to get that Versace perfume. And it's funny because I have it on my dream board, the Versace that I want. And I was going to buy it the other day because it was $13.99. And oh my God, they sent it back and said, oh, we had to cancel the order. So I don't know if it was the wrong price or not. But I felt like God was saying, hey, you did not do what you said you was going to do. And that was paying one of your debts off. So you don't get
Got
the
it.
perfume yet, so I
Yeah.
celebrate myself by, motivating myself to get done, to do the things that I need to do.
This is actually one of my favorite questions. I've posed this question to every guest and have not had an answer repeated yet. And I learn new things. What is the theme song of your life? So if you're looking in the mirror and you're either feeling down and you want to lift yourself up, or you're looking in the mirror and you're feeling yourself, you're proud, you're just feeling yourself, what song comes up?
So I don't know if you've ever heard, her name is Tracy Ellis Ross, Diana Ross's daughter.
Uh-huh.
So she has a song called Love Myself. Have you heard her? So that song?
No, I didn't know she
It
sings.
is it is so beautiful. Oh my gosh, she does. I love her. She sings. Oh my Lord. She's amazing. So I had, she is, I love this song because I'm going to repeat just a couple of words that she say and I'm going to
Yes.
read it because I took a note. But her lyric says, I don't really care if everybody likes me. I just want to love myself, love myself, love myself. And I like, oh my gosh, I love that. I don't really care what they think, I used to care, but I don't care anymore. I love myself and I accept me for me because I'm beautifully and wonderfully made in his image. And when he made me, he broke the mold. When he made you, he broke the mold, right? So I love that song.
That sounds really
You
cool.
gonna
That song sounds like probably the theme song of this podcast. So I love
totally.
that. I'm going to listen to it. I wouldn't be able to play it because of copyright laws, but it sounds like a
Yes.
good song for me to listen to right before I start an episode. So
Yes.
thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Lori,
Yeah.
what have you learned about yourself recently?
Oh my goodness. Wow. You know, it's so funny when you think you know and then you realize you don't, and it's
Yes.
okay to ask,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I used to be like, okay, I know, I already know, or I'll find it. But I realized that I need people. I need a
Mm.
tribe. I need a community. Coming
Mm.
up, we grew up kind of like military kids because we moved a lot. We moved from Kansas City to Texas to Colorado, Kansas City, Texas,
Oh,
right?
wow.
And so I was so used to cutting relationships off. But relationships was a lifeline for me. I loved having friends around, but we moved around so often that I was not able to have that foundation. So
Mm.
everybody I meet became a friend that I knew I was going to have to eventually say goodbye to. So
Yeah.
I'm learning, I just recently learned that I don't have to say goodbye to everybody. Although I've been operating in the kiss of goodbye. I love you. Bye-bye. So yeah, just overcoming that mindset.
I like that. I think that's probably not uncommon for people who have lived a transient lifestyle, be it foster care or military or whatever the reason is for frequent moves. I think that's not uncommon to learn to basically protect yourself because you know, oh, I'm here for this amount of time, but then I'm going to have to start all over again. And it takes intentional work to stop and recognize that that's a pattern in yourself and then undo that. And so the fact that you did that, I think that is phenomenal. So good job, Lori.
Thank you.
Of course. Lori,
Yeah.
what brings you joy?
Oh my goodness. You know, just knowing that other people's needs are met, and that they're living their best life. There used to be a song, and when I was young, we was singing, and it doesn't mean what I'm about to say it means to me. But they used to
Okay.
say, it's not no fun if my homies can't have none, right? But
This it it ain't no fun if my homies can't have none. But yes.
right. And it's not, because if I am living a wealthy and healthy life and everyone else in my circle is miserable, how could I really be happy within myself? So for me, seeing those that are around me thriving and living their best life, that makes me happy. But it's like a double-edged sword though, because it becomes, for me, I've had to learn how to back away, because that can become an addiction within
Okay.
itself, because I've been put in a position to where I become someone's God. And I've had to pull back from that because I wanted to force my will on someone else. I want you to live better. I want you to have better. And where it brings me joy to see that, I also have to use balance with it to say, okay, if that's not what they want, it's not my problem. It's not my fault. I did all I can do. And then I have to stand back. So that's another thing that I'm learning to
Yeah,
deal with about myself when it comes to what makes me happy,
that
because it
makes
does. I
sense.
love spreading joy.
Yeah. So if I understand what you're saying correctly, Lori, is about what brings you joy is seeing other people, um, for lack of a better word, living their best lives, especially if you are able to help them. But also at the same time, you want to make sure that you have discernment and boundaries to know when to offer help and when not to. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, actually, yes.
Okay.
You got that right on. Exactly.
Yeah.
Learning my boundaries. Because, growing up, I always under I've always respected other people's boundaries, but I
Yes.
didn't necessarily make them respect my boundaries.
Wow.
So because they would cross my boundaries, I kind of
Yes.
lost reality with what their boundaries is, in a sense,
Yes.
where I wanted to force my will on their life,
Yeah.
because especially, another thing is funny is that people will become envious when you're
Mm.
always joyful, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I think I just didn't want anybody to be mad at me, or I didn't want anybody to be
Mm.
jealous or talk about me, or misunderstand me or mislabel me, because all of
Yeah.
those things play a part. And I don't know, I just was like, here, you know what? I want to do this for you. I want you to be happy. I want you to have the things that I have, the opportunities that I have, because I don't want you to feel like no one cares, or I don't want you to feel those
Mm.
feelings. So yeah, just learning those boundaries and respecting them.
You just said something that makes me feel like you have insight into my life because this is a conversation that I had with my therapist a couple of weeks ago because of the way I grew up, where my family was experiencing and engrossed in their trauma, and there was dysfunction and a lack of boundaries. I never
Right.
knew or learned how to, one, identify my boundaries, and then
Mhm.
two, enforce boundaries, which then made it harder for me to understand other people's boundaries clearly.
Yes.
And so I am working on this. This was like a conversation that I had 2 weeks ago with my therapist. And I am very much into my midlife age. And it took me this long to even understand that about boundaries. And it makes me curious about why we as a human race aren't, why we aren't having this conversation more about the importance of boundaries and how to identify your boundaries, how to hold to your boundaries, how to respect other people's, recognize and respect other people's boundaries. Because it's big, it's healthy. It helps us have healthy interactions with other people when we
Yeah,
say this is where I am and I'll meet you where you are. So I
yeah.
think I said all that to say I resonate with what you just shared. So thank you for sharing
That's
that.
Oh, you're welcome. That is so I love, this the growth mindset or the
Mm-hmm.
forward thinking.
Yes.
I love where everything is going when it comes to communication because we're
Yes.
learning so much about the
Yes.
art. Communication is an art,
Yes.
and it's beautiful, especially when you
Yes.
start connecting with other people who come from different backgrounds. And then you start sharing and you realize how much alike we really are.
Yes. Yes. And if I could add on to that, like you said, communication is an art. Even sometimes we have miscommunication with people within our similar backgrounds, because not just that our backgrounds are similar, but within our house, our family units, we communicate this way. And even though you live next door to me or down the street from me and we grew up in the same neighborhood, there's still going to be this little bit of discrepancy about how
Yeah,
we communicate certain things. And so I agree with you that communication is skills to learn how to communicate effectively is so important in
it is.
maintaining healthy relationships. I agree with you on that.
It that's good. You know, it brings me I was telling a couple of my friends who have young kids, and I was telling them how when my sons were 12 and 13, I had to do a reassessment on our relationship
Mm,
because who they were when they were
mm,
little was not who I was
yes,
standing there looking at. So that goo goo
yes,
gaga, pretty, just cute baby that I love
yeah,
so much, who's standing
yes,
here being kind of disrespectful, that's
yeah,
not the same person. So I had
yeah,
to say, okay, we're going to have a family meeting. I need to get to know you and you again. You guys need to
mm,
get to know me again. We have to reestablish our relationship.
wow,
And I have to find out, where is your mind? What are you thinking? What do you want? What do you expect
mm-hmm,
from me? How have I disrespected you? How would you like for me to
mm-hmm,
respect? I just had to ask them those boundaries. I had to reestablish our relationship. And it was funny because some women don't agree with that, but we're never the
no,
same. And
I
just
love
because they were
that.
kids, they're not kids anymore.
Yes,
Right?
yes, yes, I love that. I think that's a huge understated parenting tip. And I have taken parenting classes and taught parenting classes. And this is the first time I've heard that. I love that because
Mhm.
as humans, we go through different phases. And so we
Yeah.
want to get to know our children again at each phase and not treating them at 12 years old the same way we interacted with them at 5 years old.
Yeah.
If I can add to that, realize that I had to do my own work. So the conversation that I had with my children as they got older is I've been doing my own self reflection, and I realized a lot of parental mistakes I made because I was young, I was inexperienced, I was deep into my trauma. And I, as a parent, had to own my stuff and say, hey, you did not get the best version of me when you were younger, and you 100% deserved it. And I apologize that you did not get what you deserved. And so that was a
Hmm.
conversation we had. I wish I had the foresight to have the conversation that you just said about, hey, you're older now. Let's have a family meeting. Let's get to know each other all over again. We're both in different phases of our lives. I love that so much.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
sharing that.
You're
That's
welcome.
a beautiful step.
My mother, I love my mom so much. And, my mom, she had addiction to crack cocaine. And
Okay.
so my mother, before she would get high, I would be sitting there with her and she would cry and she would tell me, how that addiction felt to her.
Mm.
And she would tell me I was her rock. So I grew up being her rock.
Mm.
And I would
Mm.
listen to my mom advocate, and I would hear her crying and begging and pouring her heart out to organizations and agencies that really supported us. I mean, Salvation Army, City Union Mission, um, St. Vincent de Paul, like all of these amazing organizations that became a pillar in our life. My
Yes.
mother was, even in her addiction, she was seeking help, and she would
Good.
teach us, what she learned,
Mm.
and so we were learning those communication skills and learn how to be vulnerable through watching her. I grew up watching her, and she
Oh.
would have communications, we would sit and have meetings with her. She just had an addiction and she couldn't fight it, and she didn't know how to
Yes.
fight it,
Yes.
and it's why I said
Yes.
it's so beautiful how you could have one background. I had a
Mm-hmm.
different background, but the
Mm-hmm.
same issue was there.
Yes. Yes.
And look how you came out. Like, oh
Oh,
my God, because I heard a little bit of your story. And you were so beautiful. So
thank
beautiful.
you.
So humble. So meek,
Thank
not
you.
weak. And I love it. So I just want to tell
Thank
you
you.
that.
I appreciate that. It's funny that you said that because I was thinking that about you, how despite everything you've been through, you have this beautiful heart. It's so easy uh, because we've shared this. My parents both struggle with substance addictions as well. And it's so easy when you have a life that is uncertain to build up this hard shell. And I so
Yeah.
adore, Lori, that you have not. I don't know how you
Oh,
did it. I don't know how you did it, but I love that you have not. And I wanted you to finish talking. A thing that popped up while you were sharing about your mom, who sounds amazing, is that even when she was struggling with addiction, it did not fully consume who she was as a person.
yeah, no,
Lori,
it didn't. I know.
Lori, do you know how special that is? She was still able to be vulnerable. She was still able to teach you all lessons. She was still kind to you all. And I'm not saying that just because you struggle with addiction means that you become less kind. But I've heard a lot of stories, including my own, of people raised by parents who are struggling with addiction. And yours is different.
Right.
And that is so special. And I think
Right.
it's so important. When I was growing up, I struggled with sharing that my parents struggled with substance abuse because I was
Hmm.
ashamed. I was
Yeah.
embarrassed. I felt like people would judge me. I didn't want people to feel sorry for me. What I learned through years of therapy is there's nothing to be ashamed of,
Mhm.
not for me, and especially not for my parents. I
No.
am not ashamed of them. And what they've done or felt like they had to do to survive. There's no
Yeah.
shaming that.
No.
They did the best they could with the tools
Mhm.
that they had. And so
Yes.
I think it's important for us to normalize, my personal opinion, but I think it's important for us to normalize talking about experiences like this because it's kind of like, don't talk about family business, that's private, right? Don't talk
Yes.
about that, that's shameful. Don't talk about
Yes.
that. And that's if we've done our work to be able to have those discussions without being triggered. I've gone through lots of therapy, talk therapy, and EMDR therapy. I've processed a lot, and so it doesn't trigger me to talk about my past or things that my parents faced or dealt with. But I think it's so important for us to have those conversations because,
Hmm.
Lori, you're not the only one. I'm not the only one. And someone listening may say, oh my goodness, I'm not
Right.
alone.
Yes.
And if they're in the thick of it right now, I will be okay, because look at these two beautiful,
Yeah.
amazing women who made it through, right?
Yes. 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 The whole time you were talking, all I kept seeing was the living room. Because we really didn't have, we were homeless, but we had like what were family. They were friends to my
Mm-hmm.
mother. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but she had known them since they were young. And I'll never forget, she picked up the phone and she called DS or DFS for
Mm-hmm.
Kansas City. And she told them that she needed them to come get her kids because
Mm.
she had an addiction and she didn't want her children in the streets with her.
Mm.
So my mother gave up her kids
Mm.
because she like, I don't know what to do. I don't have no family
Because
and
she
I'm out
loved
here
you
bad.
so much.
She loved
Yes.
us so much that she gave us up, you know. And so I think when you were talking and I heard all the love in your voice, my message to anybody, because some people say, how could you love your mom when she gave you up? Why do you still say
Mm-hmm.
she's your best friend? How is she your rock when she
Mm.
didn't provide? She neglected
No,
you. She,
she
you know,
can't be.
and they would say
No.
things like that to me. And I would say, my mom is a queen. My mom,
Yes.
she sacrificed, you
Yes.
know, she said that, she says that,
Pride become before the
pride comes
fall, right?
before fall. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
so my mom didn't have that. She wasn't prideful. She's not prideful,
Yeah.
you know, but I love her because she did something that is so hard for so many. She put us first,
Yes. Yes.
you know, she put
Yes.
us first. And I'm just so thankful for that journey because I don't think that we went through what we went through for us. I think we went through what we went through for such a time as today because there's so many hurting young people
Yes.
and they don't
Yes.
understand how to navigate. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just applaud you for being here for them. Um, I really do. Thank you for being here because it took me a little while to get here.
Of course. And I just want to clarify. I love that your mom loved you all so much that she was like, hey, I need help. I can't do this on my own. That is not to say that moms or dads, parents who did not make that call, don't love their children, because I also know
No,
my
for
mom,
sure.
who did not make that call, also loved me.
Yes.
That's not to say, but that's to say that your mom was, like I said, she was not fully consumed by her addiction, and that
Yes.
is so powerful, so powerful. And
Yes.
I work with some adults who work with uh, children in foster care, and they
Mm-hmm.
say some of the same things. I don't get it. Why don't they be in the kids? Why don't the kids want to leave? Why are they still so loyal to their parents? At first it used to frustrate me, but I had to step back and just think about a person who doesn't have that experience doesn't understand that regardless of what transpired, that is still your mom, that is still your dad, that is still the person who brought you into this world. And
Yeah.
every human being has redeeming qualities, is what I want to believe in
Mm-hmm.
my optimistic world.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we're all flawed, and yes, sometimes our decisions harm others, and we all make mistakes. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you
Yeah.
for that. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
What is the healthiest thing you've done for yourself?
Everyone talks about, work-life balance,
Yes.
self-love, self-care, and advocating for yourself, your health, right? Your well-being. And so for me, my job can be very stressful, and having to be nonpartisan. Oh
Mm-hmm.
my Lord. That is
I'm
taxing
going to
on the
sit next to you.
mind and the heart. And my body, I started experiencing burnout and I start
Okay.
having symptoms. So now I'm like, my anemia, oh my gosh, my iron is really low and I'm tired
Mm-hmm.
and I'm fatigued and I can't really focus and I'm stressed out and I'm crying and I don't want to go to work and all of
Yes.
these things. And finally I said, I'm gonna go to the doctor and figure out what's going on. And
Mm-hmm.
I advocated for myself and said, hey,
Good
can
job.
I please take short-term disability because I need 30
Yes.
days to get myself together.
I need a break.
30 days without pay. But that was something that I did for me. That was something that I
Yes.
needed, because during this
Yes.
time, I was able to come up with a plan on how I'm going to move forward while I take
Yeah.
care of my health and also feed my mental, spiritual, and physical body at once.
Yes.
Without having to
Yes.
worry about the task of work.
Yes.
So I would
Yes.
say that's the one thing I did for myself.
I love that. What I heard, Lori, is the healthiest thing thus far, because you'll do some more healthy things for yourself. But the healthiest thing you've done for yourself thus far is to prioritize your mental health, your spiritual self
Mhm.
over financial means. So saying, yes, this is going to be leave without pay, but there is no amount of money worth the health of my body, my mental health, and my
Mhm.
soul.
Yes.
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 Yes. I love that. That takes a certain amount of faith, bravery, to be able
Mhm.
to do that, right? Because that can
Yeah.
be scary, and
Yeah.
so that's very admirable.
Thank you. It was
Of
scary.
course.
But it's over now. I go back to work on the first.
How is your self talk? Are you challenging negative thoughts?
I'm gonna go back to my mother, because
Yes.
she has been a pillar, okay, and she's always taught me what she learned. Because I've not gone through therapy. I've looked for a therapist, but I have not found one that I fit with yet.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Remind me to give you my
um,
therapist information after this.
okay, thank you, because I need one. That'll be amazing. But my mom always says, change the channels of your mind.
Oh.
Right. And so, because I would tell her, like, Mom, I would tell her everything, and I would just
Mm-hmm.
cry and she would say, Baby, you can't, she said, you couldn't work with the mental ill. And I said, what? She said, because you can't get caught up in people's thoughts and what they feeling. People dealing with
Mm.
all sorts of things. She said, so change the channels of your mind. And so when I start feeling like I'm not good enough, or I did something to
Mm.
someone and that's why they're mistreating me or
Mm.
ignoring me or leaving me out, or whatever it is that I feel that for some reason I'm trying to get that person's attention, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
I did something wrong and maybe I could do something right. I think about what my mom says, change the channels of your mind and focus on yourself. Focus on
Yes.
what you could be doing. And so that's what I always, if my mind go to the left, I bring it right back. We go to the right, I bring it right back, by just changing the channels of my mind. Okay.
How do you do that? How do you change the channels in your mind? Can you talk more about that? Like, what is the process of doing that?
Yeah, a lot for me has always been, because like I said, I'm working on overcoming what people think about me. So that's
Yes.
always been the the obstacle for me
Mm-hmm.
of going forward, is what someone thinks about me. And so now I'll say, okay, if this person is rude or neglectful or whatever they're doing to me, I'll say, well, maybe it wasn't me. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
they're having a bad day. Maybe they're dealing with some issues. Maybe it's
Yes.
all them and it's not me. So let me
Yes.
take me out of this equation and just pray for
Oh,
them and stay out
yes.
of their way, give them that space to figure it out. But I
Yes.
can't treat through their problems because I have enough of my own. So
Yeah.
I have to change the channels of my mind by just filtering through. It's not me, it's them. And if it
Yeah.
is me, then I work through that. If I am the one with the
Yes.
problem, then I assess that
Yes.
and I'm very real with myself. I become my own critic. What did you do? What did you say? You can be passive aggressive. Yeah, I probably did. And then I apologize. If
Yes.
it's something I did, I'm like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. I mean, I meant it, but I didn't
I know
mean
you
it
mean
like that.
it. Sorry. I am just floored by that. I did an episode about not taking things personally.
Hmm.
And that's what it sounds like you just described. And so it's like if someone is having a bad day, sometimes if we're not self aware, we may accidentally project our emotions of our bad day onto others and yell at them, get impatient while we're
Hmm.
driving in the grocery store, whatever it is. but how we can help the world be a better place without sounding corny or cliche is if we each stop and say, wait a minute, I don't think that had anything to do with me. I'll give an example. I was recently on a trip to DC, and I'm normally a bubbly person. And so this particular day, I'm with a group of coworkers and I'm bubbly. And one of my coworkers is like, you're doing too much. And it hurt my feelings so much. And I cried. I was like, and then I did my self-reflecting, like, am I doing too much? Am I being, and I was like, wait a minute, Naketa, you're fine. That had nothing to do with you. That person had some stuff going on in here and they projected it. But it took a minute for me to get there, which is still progress, right? Because in the past, I wouldn't have gotten there at all. I would have just kept reliving it and reliving it. And so progress is I finally got there, and the goal is to not even stew in it for a little bit. It's just like, you can have that back. I'm not taking that on. And so I love that you recognize that. And I'm working on that. And I think that's a skill that is underrated, just like that awesome parenting skill you gave that I think is underrated. I think this skill is also underrated because we can't control other people, right? And so people who haven't done their work will continue to project negativity, unhealthy thoughts, unhappy thoughts. And then, but it's our job to say, I'm not picking that up. I will not pick that up. And so that's an underrated skill that I am working on because I've spent so many years worrying about, as you said, what people think about me. And so I'm working on that as well. I love that.
Oh, I love that. I'm proud of you. You know, because like I've been done like that before. I remember one time I worked at because I was a preschool teacher for 17 and a half years. And I would get to work in the mornings and I'd be so happy, you know, and I would just be bubbly and good morning, good morning, good morning. You know, everybody love you, love, hugs, right? And one of the teachers was like, oh my God, really, Lori? Like, are you happy every day? Some of us need our coffee. And I was like, and then I did. I did lash. I said, you know, I think something's wrong with you. You need to go see a doctor. And I did say that. And the teacher that was sitting in the room, she just kind of looked like you did. I was like, I didn't mean for it. It was just like, you just rained on my parade. I'm happy. You're sad. Go find your life. That's how I felt. No. That's hard when people challenge your good spirits like that.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm proud of you.
Thank you. I'm proud of you. I think you're saying you lashed out, but what I would say you did was speak up for yourself versus me who just went in a corner and cried. And still to this day, I don't even think that person I don't think they know that it bothered me. So I'm proud of you for speaking up for yourself.
Thank you. Of course. My mom always say, you were good. She said the things you don't say, because she used to say, I wish I could be you for just one day. I have your whole world in order. And I used to say, Mom, I got because people would say things and do things to me and I would be crying. I'd be so hurt. And she's like, she said, the things you don't say be the things you regret. And I used to be like, what does that mean? But now she was trying to tell me, put them boundaries and demand your respect. Because you give it and you deserve to have respect back.
Yes.
You know?
I agree, Lori. And I think because when I was younger, I was that person. You couldn't get anything past me. You were going to get it. You hear me? I was going to chew you up, chew you down, chew you and spit you out. Okay. But then as I started working on me, I became less assertive in that respect because I'm still assertive because that's my personality. But like if people are attacking me, my first instinct was not to attack back anymore. And so I think there's this balance that I have to figure out of not to be on the end of, I'm going to let you have it because that's also lowering my vibration. But also not being completely passive, which is not healthy for me. So I think for me, it's finding that middle ground of sometimes you don't deserve a response and we'll let you sit in that negativity or having a response that's not in anger and saying, hey, that was pretty mean. You know, and then I'm not lowering my vibration. I'm not being rude. And I'm also speaking up for myself. And so I'm trying to get there, baby steps.
You're going to get there. You got this.
I got this. Lori, what is something that you're proud of?
I moved 1,000 miles away, sight unseen, to Arizona when my babies were 1 and 2 years old. I found a house online based off of Joel Osteen's sermon with his palm trees. They bend, but they don't break, right? So a palm tree is definitely resilient because they bend, but they don't break. And so God brought me here, and everyone thought I had lost my mind. They were, you not gonna visit? You just gonna pick up and take the kids? I went and found a moving company, and I had to move all over. So my kids didn't even know they had moved to another state. They didn't even know that they was in a whole nother state because everything of theirs was here. And so not only did I come, but God used me like Joseph in the Bible. So I walked out on faith. And then my mother, who had been addicted to drugs, she finally came, and then she went cold turkey on, no more crack cocaine. My sister came with her children because Kansas City is beautiful, but there's a lot of different things people can get into. And I didn't want my kids to get lost into those things. And so my faith move opened up the door for my family to come to so that they can change their life. So my son always says, Mom, do you realize that some of the kids that are born in the family wouldn't have been born if you hadn't moved here? And he gave me the lifeline. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, even the kid's father, we are not together, right? But we just grew apart, but we had been together for almost 11 years. And he met the love of his life. And I know some people are like, wow, you should have been, but it don't always work that way. Sometimes we're with each other for different reasons. But he met the love of his life, and I'm okay with that. But they had 2 more kids. So my son was like, Mom, the babies wouldn't even have been here if it wasn't for you. And I love those babies. Those are my babies. I love them, and I'm like, wow. And then my sister has 2 kids, and they wouldn't have been here. And I'm like, okay, lifeline. So I'm proud that I was obedient,
What I hear, Lori, and you call it lifeline, and the word that pops up to me is legacy. Look at the legacy you're building. Look at that. Look at the generational trauma that's stopping with you. And that is everything. And you should be very proud. Very, very proud. So I love that example because I'm sure there are so many things that you can be proud of that you've done in your lifetime. And I love this one. I love that you highlighted this one. What I love about this one is that it keeps going. It's going to live past you. And I think that's phenomenal. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Anything you want to say before we end the episode?
A lot of times when you're a dreamer, and I'm a dreamer, and and people always say you have to be focused on one thing. But I got this sticker the other day, and the sticker was an affirmational sticker, and it said, "Who said you had to choose?" And so I just want to share that. Like, if you want to do something, do it. And don't worry about what someone else say that you cannot do, because those are their limits and not yours.
That is a beautiful way to end.
Lori,
thank you so much for taking time to share your insight, your personal experiences, and being vulnerable. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Of course. I hope this episode gave you some tools to connect with and increase your resiliency. I'm proud of you. Let's keep up the momentum. Follow Resilient Life on your favorite podcast platform and on YouTube at Resilient Life Podcast. Until next time, be kind to yourself and others.